Olivia Bennett smoothed down her pale blue dress for the 10th time before finally stepping out of the subway station. The soft cotton fabric wasn't fancy, but she'd poured her heart into it. Spending 3 long evenings sewing delicate white flowers along the hem and neckline. In her cozy little Brooklyn apartment, under the warm glow of her desk lamp, it had looked absolutely beautiful. But now, standing outside the grand Metropolitan Plaza Hotel, it felt painfully, almost laughably inadequate. The invitation tucked inside her purse was a fluke, a wonderful mistake. Olivia worked a part-time job at Prestige Events, a company that orchestrated lavish galas for New York's elite. She was the behind-the-scenes girl, filing paperwork and packing gift bags. But someone in the mailroom had mixed up the guest list with the staff directory. And just like that, an embossed invitation to the Rosewood Foundation Charity Gala landed in her mailbox. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, had just laughed when Olivia showed it to her. "You should go," she'd said, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "Life doesn't hand out opportunities like this every day. What's the worst that could happen?" Watching the parade of luxury cars depositing guests in shimmering gowns and flawless tuxedos, Olivia could think of quite a few answers to that question. She nervously touched the small pearl earrings, a precious heirloom from her grandmother, trying to draw strength from their familiar weight. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. True elegance comes from within, not from a price tag. Tonight, Olivia was desperately trying to believe that. The lobby was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers dripped from impossibly high ceilings, their light splintering across marble floors that shone like a dark, still lake. Olivia followed the glittering crowd toward the grand ballroom, her simple flats making no sound against the floor, a stark contrast to the confident clicking of heels all around her. At the entrance, she held her breath and presented her invitation. The attendant scanned it, his brow furrowed for a split second as he looked at his tablet, and then he waved her through. Olivia let out a quiet sigh of relief. The ballroom was a fairy tale of opulence. Tables draped in ivory surrounded a dance floor that gleamed like polished glass. Towering centerpieces of white orchids and roses reached for the ceiling, while a string quartet filled the air with elegant music. Olivia quickly found an empty seat at a table near the back, hoping to just be a fly on the wall, to observe without being noticed. That hope lasted for exactly 7 minutes. "Oh my goodness, Veronica, you have to see this." The voice, sharp and condescending, came from directly behind her. Olivia turned to see 2 women, both dripping in designer dresses that likely cost more than her entire semester's tuition. The one who spoke, a blonde with piercing eyes, was staring at Olivia's dress with unconcealed amusement. "Natasha, is that a homemade dress?" The second woman, Veronica, brought a hand to her mouth in mock horror. They both shared the same predatory smile. Heat crawled up Olivia's neck. "I made it myself, yes." "How quaint," Natasha purred, her voice laced with false sweetness. "Did you also make your shoes? They look so comfortable. Very practical." Heads at nearby tables turned. Olivia felt their gazes a mix of curiosity, amusement, and a pity that stung more than anything else. She forced her spine to straighten, refusing to let them see her crumble. "Ladies, there you are." An older woman in burgundy silk, clearly their mother, glided over. Her gaze swept over Olivia, cataloging and dismissing her in a single, practiced motion. "Who is your friend?" "We just met her," Mother Veronica said. "We were admiring her dress, so." "Unique." The word unique was practically dripping with venom. Mrs. Harrison, for it could be no one else, offered a thin smile. "How wonderful. DIY is very popular these days, I hear. Very resourceful." She then turned to her daughters. "Come, the Vanderbilt table is waiting." They swept away, leaving a trail of whispers in their wake. The city sparkled before her, a million lights representing a million different lives. Somewhere out there were people who wouldn't judge her for sewing her own clothes, people who understood that dignity wasn't measured in dollars. Running away or just escaping? Olivia spun around. A man stood silhouetted in the doorway. He stepped into the light, and her breath caught. She recognized him instantly. Gabriel Stone. His face had been on the cover of Business Weekly just last month. The tech world's youngest self-made billionaire, a visionary who had revolutionized data security. He was taller than she'd imagined, with dark hair and eyes that held a genuine curiosity, not an ounce of judgment. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude, Olivia stammered, starting to move back toward the door. Please, don't go. His voice was warm, completely lacking the condescension she'd grown used to tonight. I've been hiding out here myself. The conversation inside is suffocating. Olivia hesitated. You're Gabriel Stone? He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Unfortunately, and you are. Nobody important, she blurted out before she could stop herself. Gabriel studied her for a moment. I saw what happened in there. The Harrisons can be particularly cruel. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You saw that? A fresh wave of embarrassment washed over her. I see more than people think, he said quietly, moving to stand beside her at the railing, keeping a respectful distance. For what it's worth, your dress is beautiful. There's something honest about it. Everything in there? He gestured back toward the ballroom as a costume, a performance. Yours actually means something. Olivia looked at him, searching his face for any hint of mockery, but found only sincerity. You don't have to be kind. I'm not being kind. I'm being truthful. He paused. Can I tell you something? I grew up in a neighborhood where sewing your own clothes wasn't quaint or resourceful. It was survival. My mother made every piece of clothing I wore until I was 15. I remember being so ashamed of it, hiding it from everyone. Now I understand it was one of the most loving things anyone ever did for me. His confession hung in the cool night air between them. Olivia felt something shift inside her, a quiet understanding passing between two people who both knew what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. Why are you telling me this? She asked softly. Gabriel turned to face her fully, because in a room full of people pretending to be someone they're not, you walked in as yourself. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done in my entire career. Before Olivia could even begin to process that, the terrace doors swung open. Natasha Harrison stood there, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw them together. Stone, we've been looking everywhere for you. The auction is about to begin. Her gaze flickered to Olivia, thick with disdain. Gabriel's expression remained pleasant, but Olivia saw his jaw tighten. Thank you, Natasha. I'll be there shortly. Mother specifically requested your presence at our table, Natasha pressed, not giving up. I appreciate the invitation, Gabriel said, his voice smooth as glass. However, I've just asked Olivia to join me for dinner. Hope you'll excuse us. The silence that followed was so sharp it could have shattered glass. Natasha's jaw dropped, her perfectly painted face a mask of disbelief. Without another word, she turned on her heel and disappeared back into the ballroom. Olivia stood there completely stunned as Gabriel Stone turned to her with a warm, genuine smile. And for the first time all night, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this one. We'll see you in the next video. Natasha Harrison's perfectly painted mouth opened and closed without a sound. Her eyes darted between Gabriel and Olivia, searching for the punchline of a joke that just wasn't coming. When she finally found her voice, it came out strangled and tight. I'm sorry, did you say dinner? With her. Gabriel's expression stayed calm, but there was steel under his polite smile. Yes, with Olivia. Is there a problem? No, of course not. Natasha recovered quickly, though her knuckles whitened around her clutch purse. I just thought you might prefer to sit with people more suited to your social circle. I am, Gabriel said simply. He extended his arm to Olivia. Shall we? Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to slip away quietly and go back to her safe, invisible life. But there was something in Gabriel's eyes, a warmth that felt so achingly genuine, it made her place her hand in the crook of his elbow. The fabric of his tuxedo was smooth beneath her fingers. Together, they walked back into the ballroom, and Olivia felt the weight of hundreds of eyes turned toward them. The string quartet kept playing, but conversation stopped mid-sentence. The silence rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. Gabriel guided her toward a table near the front, far from the shadows where she'd tried to hide. Every step felt like walking through a dream, surreal and terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Mr. Stone, a server, appeared instantly. Your table is prepared? May I bring you both something to drink? Champagne for the lady, Gabriel said, pulling out a chair for Olivia. And sparkling water for me, thank you. As Olivia sat, she noticed the place cards. The table was set for 8, but Gabriel calmly removed the other cards and handed them to the server. "We'll be dining alone this evening. Please ensure we're not disturbed unless absolutely necessary." The server nodded and disappeared. Olivia stared at Gabriel in disbelief. "You just commandeered an entire table." "I donated $2 million to this foundation last year," Gabriel said with a slight shrug. "I think I've earned the right to choose my dinner companions." He leaned forward, his expression growing more serious. "But if this makes you uncomfortable, we can leave. There's an excellent Thai restaurant 3 blocks from here that doesn't care what anyone is wearing." The offer was completely genuine. Olivia could see it in his eyes. He would actually walk out of his own event, abandon his obligations and the expectations of everyone in this room, just because she might be uncomfortable. The realization made her chest feel tight. "No," she said softly. "I want to stay." Gabriel's smile reached his eyes this time. "Good, because I have to confess something. I've been dreading this evening for weeks. These events are necessary for business, but they drain every ounce of energy I have. Then I saw you on that terrace, and for the first time tonight, I felt like I could actually breathe." Their champagne arrived, delivered by a server who was clearly trying not to stare. Olivia took a small sip, letting the bubbles dance on her tongue. Around them, the room gradually returned to its normal volume, though she could feel curious glances sliding their way every few seconds. "Tell me about yourself," Gabriel said. "And please, start with something real, not the rehearsed introduction people give at events like this." Olivia set down her glass. "I'm a third-year art student at Brooklyn College. I work part-time at an event planning company to pay tuition. I received an invitation to tonight by accident, a clerical error, and I probably should have returned it. But I've spent 3 years helping organize events like this without ever seeing one, and I was curious." "What do you study in art?" Gabriel asked. "Painting, mostly. I specialize in portraits." Olivia felt herself relaxing, despite the setting. "I'm fascinated by faces, by the stories people carry in their expressions. My thesis project is a series called Invisible People, portraits of individuals society tends to overlook. Janitors, street vendors, subway musicians, people who keep the city running but rarely get noticed." Gabriel's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "That's extraordinary. I'd love to see your work sometime. It's nothing compared to what gets displayed in galleries," Olivia said quickly. "Don't do that," Gabriel said gently. "Don't diminish your passion because someone might judge it as less valuable. Art is art, whether it hangs in a museum or your apartment. The meaning is in the creation, not the price tag." Olivia studied him carefully. "Really believe that?" "I do." Gabriel paused as servers arrived with their first course, a delicate salad arranged like a work of art. "My mother was a seamstress in Queens. She worked in a factory during the day and took in alterations at night to make ends meet. I grew up surrounded by fabric and thread, watching her create beautiful things with her hands. She never went to design school, never had her work featured in fashion shows, but every piece she made carried her love and skill that made it valuable." "Where is she now?" Olivia asked. A shadow crossed Gabriel's face. "She passed away 6 years ago. Cancer. She never got to see me succeed, never got to stop working herself to exhaustion." He met Olivia's eyes. "That's why I work so hard now. Not for the money or the recognition, but because I want to create opportunities for people like her. People who have talent and determination, but lack the resources or connections to break through." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "She would be proud of you." "I hope so." Gabriel's voice was rough with emotion. "Sometimes I wonder if she'd even recognize the person I've become. These suits, these events, this whole world feels foreign. Like I'm wearing someone else's life." Before Olivia could respond, commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Mrs. Harrison was making her way toward their table, her daughters trailing behind like battleships in formation. The older woman's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Gabriel, darling," she said, ignoring Olivia completely. "I must speak with you about the foundation board. It's quite urgent. It can wait until Monday," Gabriel said pleasantly. "I'm having dinner. This really cannot be postponed." Mrs. Harrison's tone turned icy. "Unless you'd rather I discuss your business matters in front of strangers," Gabriel set down his fork with deliberate care. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but carried the unmistakable weight of authority. "Olivia is not a stranger. She is my guest. And you, Mrs. Harrison, are being incredibly rude. The silence that fell over the nearby tables was absolute. Mrs. Harrison's face flushed an unflattering shade of red. "I see," she said tightly. "I was simply trying to save you from embarrassment. This girl clearly doesn't belong here." Gabriel stood, and Olivia realized just how imposing he could be when he chose. "You're right. She doesn't belong here. She belongs somewhere with genuine kindness and real conversation. Somewhere people value character over couture." He turned to the room at large, his voice carrying clearly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Olivia Bennett, an incredibly talented artist and my guest of honor this evening." The room erupted in confused applause. Mrs. Harrison stood frozen, her carefully constructed authority crumbling. Gabriel offered his hand to Olivia, pulling her gently to her feet. "May I have this dance?" he asked. His eyes locked on hers. Olivia's throat was too tight to speak. She simply nodded, placing her hand in his once more. The orchestra began a slow waltz as Gabriel led Olivia onto the dance floor. His hand settled at her waist, warm and steady, while his other hand held hers with gentle confidence. Around them, other couples joined the dance, but Olivia barely noticed. The world had narrowed to the man before her and the music that wrapped around them like silk. "I haven't danced in years," Olivia whispered, a sudden wave of nerves washing over her. "Then we'll figure it out together," Gabriel replied, his voice a low, reassuring murmur. He guided her into the first steps, and to her surprise, her body followed his lead, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. They moved across the floor in perfect synchronization, like they had danced together 100 times before. Gabriel's eyes never left hers, and in their depths, Olivia saw something that made her heart skip a beat. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition, understanding, the beginning of something real. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly, the question escaping before she could stop it. "You don't know me. Could have anyone in this room." Gabriel pulled her slightly closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "When I was building my first company, I nearly lost everything. I was 23, sleeping on a friend's couch, eating ramen for every meal. One night, I was at a coffee shop trying to make a single cup last for hours just so I could use their Wi-Fi." He spun her gently before continuing, his gaze still locked on hers. "A woman noticed me. She saw how exhausted I was, and she bought me dinner. No questions, no expectations, just kindness for kindness' sake. She told me something I've never forgotten. The measure of a person is unto what they have, but what they do when they have nothing. You walked into this room knowing you'd be judged, knowing you didn't fit their narrow definition of acceptable. And you held your head high anyway. That's strength, Olivia. That's the kind of person I want to know." Tears blurred Olivia's vision. She felt a lump forming in her throat. "I almost didn't come tonight. I was afraid of exactly what happened." "I'm glad you came," Gabriel said simply. "I needed to meet someone real, someone who reminded me why I started all of this in the first place." The song ended, but neither of them moved. They stood in the center of the dance floor, caught in a moment that felt suspended outside of time. Then reality crashed back with a cruel, sharp voice. "How touching." Veronica Harrison stood at the edge of the dance floor, her phone held high, a smirk on her face. "Though I wonder how touching Mr. Stone will find it when he discovers his date of honor is actually a minimum wage worker who received her invitation by mistake." How touching. The room fell silent. Every eye was on them. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face, a cold dread spreading through her. Gabriel's hand tightened on hers, but she could barely feel it through the sudden numbness. Veronica, her mother's voice carried a warning, but it was too late. Her daughter was on a roll. "No, Mother, people deserve to know the truth. This girl is nobody. She files papers at an event company. She probably makes less in a year than we spend on shoes." Veronica's smile was vicious. "She's been playing dress-up all evening, pretending to be one of us. The game is over." Humiliation burned through Olivia like acid. She tried to pull away from Gabriel, to escape, to disappear. But his grip remained firm, anchoring her in place. Then he spoke, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "You're absolutely right." Every head turned toward him. Olivia's heart shattered. She had been a fool to think this was anything more than a fleeting moment of charity. "Olivia did receive her invitation by mistake," Gabriel continued. She does work at an event planning company. Everything you've said is true." He paused, letting the words hang in the air before his voice grew stronger, filled with a power that commanded attention. "But here's what you don't know." He took a step forward, addressing the entire assembly. 10 years ago, I was sleeping in a homeless shelter in the Bronx. My mother had just died. I had $400 to my name and a half-finished computer science degree I couldn't afford to complete. I wore the same 3 outfits for 2 years. I ate at soup kitchens. According to people like you, I was nobody. Shocked whispers erupted around the room. Mrs. Harrison's face turned white as a sheet. "I built my company from nothing," Gabriel declared, "because a few people saw past my circumstances to recognize my potential. They gave me chances I didn't deserve on paper. They believed in character over credentials. Tonight, I watched all of you judge Olivia Bennett based on her dress and her background, the same way people once judged me, and it made me sick." He turned back to Olivia, his expression softening, his eyes full of an emotion that stole her breath. "This woman has more courage, more authenticity, more genuine worth than anyone else in this room. She creates beauty with her own hands. She studies hard to build a future for herself. She shows up even when she knows the game is rigged against her. That's the kind of person I want in my life. Not because of what she has, but because of who she is." Olivia's tears flowed freely now, but they were no longer tears of shame. They were tears of relief, of being truly seen. Gabriel crossed back to her and took both her hands in his. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the silent ballroom. "I know we just met. I know this is crazy and fast and probably terrifying. But I'd like to keep knowing you, Olivia Bennett. I'd like to take you to that Thai restaurant I mentioned. I'd like to see your paintings. I'd like to hear about your dreams and your fears and everything in between. No performance, no pretense. Just to people who understand what it means to build something from nothing." "Yes," Olivia whispered, her voice breaking on the single word. "Yes to all of it." Gabriel smiled, a radiant, transformative smile that lit up his entire face. He pulled her into an embrace that felt like coming home. Round them, scattered applause began, growing into a wave. Others in the crowd looked uncomfortable, their prejudices confronted too directly to ignore. The Harrison family had vanished, their little empire of cruelty diminished by the simple, powerful truth. 6 months later, Olivia stood in the center of the Meridian Gallery, surrounded by her paintings. The Invisible People series hung on pristine white walls, each portrait a testament to dignity and strength. The opening night crowd moved through the space with reverent attention, pausing to read the stories that accompanied each piece. Gabriel stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, having left his tuxedo world behind for the evening. Together, they watched as a young girl stopped before the portrait of a subway musician, her eyes wide with recognition. "That's Mr. Rodriguez," the girl said to her mother. "He plays at our station every morning." "You captured him perfectly," the mother agreed, leaning closer to study Olivia's brushwork. Gabriel leaned down to whisper in Olivia's ear. "Your mother would be proud." Olivia turned to look at him, this man who had seen her when everyone else looked away, who had chosen authenticity over appearance, substance over status, who had reminded her that worthiness was inherent, not earned through the approval of others. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what? For choosing me, for reminding me where I came from and why it matters." He kissed her then, gentle and certain, surrounded by art and truth, and the beginning of a love built on the firmest foundation of all, mutual respect, shared values, and the courage to be exactly who they were.
Outside, New York City continued its endless dance.
But inside the gallery, 2 people who had once been invisible stood in the light together,
Oh,
proving that the richest connections come not from wealth or status, but from the simple, profound act of truly seeing another human being.